The salary cap comes for everyone. The warning that Jeff Weltman gave throughout the entire offseason and what it means moving forward. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 29th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about how the salary cap comes for us all, the warning Jeff Weltman kept giving, and the reality that is here for the Orlando Magic heading into future offseason. Plus, Tyus Jones, now a Phoenix Sun, at the minimum. Missed opportunity or the right call? We'll get to that, plus an Olympic update coming to you in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. The Orlando Magic had their cap room, and now it's gone. No more cap room. We're done. The Magic spent their $50 million in cap space and are now an over-the-cap team. They do have one piece that they can still maneuver around a little bit, but the time of free money is gone. This is something that Jeff Weltman was warning about throughout the entire, really for the last 2 years. The Magic have spent their money. They are facing down the same cap realities, the same restrictions that so many teams around the NBA are facing. As Jeff Weltman said many, many times over the last year and a half, the new salary cap, the new rules come for everybody. At some point, the Magic were going to have to pay Franz Wagner, which they did, a max contract. At some point, the Magic are going to have to pay Paolo Banchero next summer, also a max contract. And the Magic will have to pay Jalen Suggs, TBD, we'll discuss on our next episode of Locked On Magic. But this is the cold, hard truth of the NBA. You have your window to spend, and if you can manage it, if you can create it, you have to spend, but spend wisely. And that is essentially what the Magic tried to do this offseason. The Magic understood that they could not enter this offseason. We'll talk about one of those free agents coming up here in a minute. They understood they could not enter this offseason and just free-flowingly spend money. Yes, they had to get to $50 million, get their $50 million spent, but they also had to be thinking about the future, about how their team would be composed and how they would be able to maneuver in a world where they didn't have cap room. As we have begun to examine or really begin to think about what the Magic did this offseason, and look, there is fair criticism to be made. There are plenty of people that I know who are a little upset the Magic didn't go after a few other players or didn't try and push some chips in or didn't try to fill some clearer needs. We'll talk about one of those in our next segment. But the Magic wanted to be measured because although they understood they had this money to spend, they knew there were costs coming down the road. Franz Wagner is going from an $8 million a year player to a $35 million a year player on July 1st, 2025. Paolo Banchero goes from a $12, $13 million a year player to a $42 million a year player on July 1st, 2026. Having that space is power. It enables you to double dip, so to speak, because cap holds are significantly lower and it just makes it easier to go out and get free agents. But as the Magic looked at this free agency market, which wasn't that great, there wasn't that player to double dip for. There wasn't that Paul George. Paul George is a great example. He got a max contract. He's getting paid $35 to $40 million a year. The Magic didn't want two max players in Franz and Paolo, plus another probable $30 million a year player in Jalen Suggs, they didn't want all that on their books and further restrict them. They know that the best way to improve their roster is through trades. They know that the way to get better is ultimately going to be through the careful management of this roster. And they know depth was a superpower for them last year. And so the Magic invested in their depth this summer. And they created all these smaller but still meaningful contracts on short-term deals that they could possibly combine and move, or they could move to fill out the roster as needed moving forward. To be sure, the future for the Orlando Magic is in trades. That is how this team is going to improve. But everything Orlando did this summer, signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, not cheap, by the way, signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to a 3-year, $66 million deal, re-signing Mo Wagner to a manageable 2-year, $22 million deal, renegotiate and extend with Jonathan Isaac, which will actually bring him back on a lower salary number than he was at last year. All of that was done to set their books up for their immediate future, for the future when they don't have room to spend. Orlando knows that it will be a tax team very, very, very soon. They're trying to value their continuity. They do view that as their superpower. There's no reason to leave continuity when things are working so well. But they know there is still more work to do. And they know that this was their time to do it because their ability to spend decreases dramatically. These cap penalties, these restrictions, they come for everybody. And the Magic, while not a tax team yet, will be a tax team within the next 2 years. That means their window to win a championship is coming up very quickly. And it opens and closes to some extent. And obviously it depends a lot on Paolo Banchero and how good he is and how good Franz Wagner is and internal development. It still depends a lot on that. But the Magic are in a very different cap situation now than they were at the beginning of the summer. And what the Magic had to do was set themselves up for the future when they would be capped out. This is a team that is still growing, and as Jeff Weltman has said, trying to thread a very thin needle. They understand and they know that they're trying to develop internally while they're still trying to win. And that is not an easy thing to do. That is not something that is so easily accomplished. And to do both at the same time is incredibly difficult. But the Magic didn't want to go out and grab players who would impede the growth of their young roster. They didn't want to grab players that would cost them too much and make it harder for them to maneuver moving forward or cost them depth at this point. In that respect, the Magic had the exact summer they needed to have. But the summers moving forward, the off seasons moving forward are going to feel very different than this summer was. I think most Magic fans have come to agree that this was a pretty solid offseason for Orlando. Adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, adding a starter of his caliber is definitely a plus. It's definitely a bonus. But now comes the harder part. Now comes the part where the Magic have to find a way to get better without the tool of free agency. Now comes the trade machine part, which is very difficult to do because trades are hard. Fake trades are bad and trades are hard. And the Magic now have to navigate a world where there are restrictions, where the money isn't flowing as easily. The salary cap comes for everybody, as Jeff Weltman has said repeatedly. And now that we can sit back and assess this summer, we know it's coming for the Magic. Having said that, there's definitely a missed opportunity on the board. We talked a lot about Tyus Jones. He finally signs with the Phoenix Suns on the minimum. Is this a missed opportunity for the Magic? We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. It's a busy week here in Central Florida. We got a big soccer match Manchester City, I believe, is in town to play a game at Camping World Stadium. Orlando City has their Leagues Cup game coming up later this week as well. Big win over CF Montreal on Saturday. So many other events going on here in Central Florida. Of course, we're always waiting on the Magic schedule to let us know when we can go to Orlando Magic games again. And so if you want to get tickets to any of these events, the best place to go is Game Time with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets to almost any event. I've used Game Time to peruse tickets for concerts. I've got my eye on a concert coming up in September with Weezer. I've actually used Game Time often to have buyer's remorse and say, man, I went and bought my ticket. If I had waited, Game Time would have had it cheaper. It's really that simple. Game Time helps you save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. With flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of your game or event. And they give you all-in pricing, allowing you to toggle that feature and show the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports from the local experts who know their team best. It's literally like the best of the Locked On Podcast Network. You get the hits from around the network on the biggest stories in sports every day. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Phoenix Suns finally did it. You know, it's been the biggest question of the offseason, the biggest question remaining this summer, perhaps the biggest free agent that's still out there, a guy that a lot of Magic fans wanted, and everyone was just kind of perplexed how he got left out on the musical chairs that is free agency. The Phoenix Suns have signed former Washington Wizards guard Tyus Jones to a veterans minimum contract. That's right. Tyus Jones will make the same amount as Corey Joseph for the Orlando Magic. Ostensibly, this is just become a prove-it deal for Tyus Jones. He's going to a contending team, and yes, the Suns have Kevin Durant. We'll talk about Durant here in a minute. He's going to a team with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, a team that has certainly playoff aspirations, if not, but certainly championship aspirations too, to be their starting point guard. And obviously he's going there hoping to get back into it on the horse, get back into the market and get that big contract that he was looking for that just never materialized in this current market. And the Wizards obviously moved on. We're deciding to move on from him very clearly and evidently. This is a great move for, with the options that were available for Tyus Jones. This is a great move. And for the Suns, it's absolutely a great move. The appeal of Tyus Jones for Magic fans certainly was that he is a high assist, low turnover guard who is an excellent three-point shooter. So he could be someone that could manage the team. He can be someone that can stay out of the way. He's not going to try and drive and create all these scoring opportunities. And he's a great outlet as a three-point shooter. The biggest questions for him was always about his defense, particularly because he is a relatively small player. He defended okay in Memphis, but that was coming off the bench. Very, very clearly, Tyus Jones put an emphasis on starting, that he wanted to be a starter, and that's why he chose a minimum deal with Phoenix over perhaps going back to Washington for a year or trying to negotiate a sign-in trade or even go into like a team like Detroit that may need a point, that doesn't need a point guard, but would have money to spend. Essentially, Tyus Jones became a victim. I talked about how the salary cap's coming for everyone. He became a victim of the salary cap in that with all the money being thrown around, the middle class in the NBA got killed. That was the knock-on effect of the money being injected into the league and the preparations for the second apron is a lot of these mid-tier free agents got killed. Malik Monk did not even want to enter free agency. He agreed to a long-term deal that was probably less than what he was going to get on the market, but he's only going to get that for 2 years. He chose the years over the money. Jonathan Isaac did the same thing. In the renegotiate and extend, Jonathan Isaac gets $8 million up front, but he's going to be $14 million a year on the back when that extension kicks in next year. So again, you had a lot of players choose years over money. Even D'Angelo Russell stayed home in Los Angeles knowing that the market wasn't there. Very clearly, I think the Wizards I think Tyus Jones and his representation were hoping that the Magic would go for him. Remember, the Magic, Paolo Banchero made it pretty clear in that article with the Washington Post, no coincidence, I think, that he feels like the Magic needed a table setter. I would agree with that assessment. That's how I felt coming out of the playoffs, is that the Magic needed a table setter. They needed a point guard who could manage the team and just kind of direct traffic and calm them down in key points. For that reason, I considered and liked the idea of Tyus Jones, at least in theory. But very, very clearly, the Magic were not interested in that. There is some suggestion and some belief that the Magic were actually really trying to get Malik Monk, and obviously he didn't hit the market. They went for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope pretty quickly. We got that deal announced and reported very, very quickly on free agent within an hour of free agency beginning. The Kentavious Caldwell-Pope thing was done. So we have to ask ourselves, though, is this a missed opportunity? Did the Magic miss something with Tyus Jones? And personally, I'm not one to get into these what ifs. I would say yes. Well, the Magic still have their room mid-level exception. That is, I did some math. I talked with Keith Smith of Spelltrack just to double check my math. The Magic do still have their room mid-level exception. They can use that in trades until December, I believe. So they still have some, even though they're over the cap, a new rule in the CBA is you can trade into exceptions, into mid-level exceptions if you retain it. So the Magic still have that option ahead of them. It's about $7-8 million exception. The Magic very easily could have used it out on him. They obviously used up their last roster spot on Corey Joseph for the same deal that Tyus Jones got from Phoenix. They could have given that same luxury. But at the end of the day, Tyus Jones was looking to start. And the Magic obviously went out and got their starter in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So unless Tyus Jones was willing to come off the bench, or the Magic were ready to kind of give up on Cole Anthony or push Gary Harris and Jet Howard and Anthony Black down the depth chart, Tyus Jones didn't have a place with this Magic team. Like I said, Orlando's trying to thread a very narrow needle here. They are trying to win. They want to win. They want to get to the second round. They want to get home court advantage. They want to do all those things. But they also still want to develop and grow their players. And you can rightfully argue, well, if the Magic want to do that, they should be adding veterans that enhance their key players. For as much as we all are hopeful and like Anthony Black and hopeful and like Jet Howard and hopeful and like Cole Anthony, those players aren't important. Like the only two or three players really in their development really matter for this team. Now, I'm not saying give up on those guys. I'm not saying don't give them their chance. But everything about this Magic team has to be about how do we make Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, how do we make their lives easier? Because at the end of the day, those are your two max players. Those are the players you are putting your money where your mouth is for. As much as Tyus Jones would hurt this team's defense. I think I made that very, very clear on my Case for and Against Tyus Jones podcast back in May or June. I forget when that was. I think I made that very, very clear that was my big concern, and that he doesn't fit the vision for the Magic. And the Magic aren't in a place yet where they're willing to compromise those values. Orlando was not going to compromise its defense to add an offensive piece. Very clearly, they doubled down on their defense this offseason. They doubled down on with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They added everybody back. They know the formula, and they're sticking with it. Ultimately, I don't think the Magic made a mistake here. Yes, there's a missed opportunity to just add talent to the roster and have talent on the roster, but you also don't want to mess up the vibes. Is Tyus Jones going to be upset coming off the bench? He just started with Washington. He's clearly looking to be a starter. And so I don't think Tyus Jones takes that veteran minimum deal for any team but a team like Phoenix, a team that last year was criticized for not having a point guard and a manager and kind of shoehorning Devin Booker as a point guard. Now Tyus Jones is in a play, and Phoenix now has a guy who can enhance their players. That is something Phoenix desperately needed, and I don't think he would have gone for this deal with any other team. At the end of the day, the Magic, I think, felt their work and their time and their effort and their money was better spent elsewhere. Tyus Jones wasn't the guy they were chasing. He may have been, he may not have been, he may have been further down on their list if they didn't get KCP. I don't know. I think there were plenty of reasons there are plenty of reasons to sign him and plenty of reasons not to sign him. You can go back and listen to the podcast on that. But I don't think the Magic missed an opportunity in this case. I think that, yes, more talent would be better. To have that point guard option would be better. To have that potential trade chip, even if you say to spend some of the mid-level exception, put some salary behind him so that you can use him as a trade chip if it comes to that. I think that would have been a good strategic move, but I think it would also be a signal that they don't believe in Anthony Black, that they don't believe in Cole Anthony. And maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe Summer League should have, maybe Summer League, I think you could argue a little bit about this at Summer League that Anthony Black did not necessarily look ready to play point guard for this team in a meaningful way. Maybe that should have been a spur to say, okay, let's go get Tyus Jones. Let's get him on the roster and we'll figure out roles out later. I don't think that's how the Magic operate. And so I don't think the Magic missed an opportunity here. As popular as he was during the free agency, as cheap as he would have been to sign and add to the roster, I think the Magic are very, very happy with what they were able to accomplish this summer and where they're positioned and what they're able to do moving forward. The Olympics tipped off on Saturday. We'll talk about how the Wagner brothers and Team Germany did, plus how Team USA looked as well. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. The Olympics are officially open. They started on Friday night with the opening ceremonies. They started last Wednesday with rugby and soccer, but the Olympics are officially open. The basketball tournament is started, and it's been a heck of a first weekend of Olympic basketball. Germany steps up with a 20-point win over Japan on Saturday. Franz Wagner with 22 points, Mo Wagner with 15 points off the bench. And frankly, watching that game just felt like comfort food. It was just like, oh, there's Franz driving in and getting to the basket. Oh, there's Mo rolling hard to the rim and that, nice little seal and hook shot that he has. There's Franz completely shutting down Rui Hachimura and making him look silly and completely taking Japan out of their game. There's Mo. There's a close game in the first quarter. Mo Wagner on the bench comes in. They make it a comfortable lead. Germany never really runs away with the thing, but Japan never really threatens. A really solid opener for Team Germany. Dennis Schroeder with the double-double. We love this. We love this German team here at Locked On Magic. Just a really solid game. And like I said, this was just comfort food. I felt like watching the game, Germany, not that they were going through the motions, but that Germany really wasn't showing its hand. Look, Franz got his buckets. He got his baskets. All of them are around the basket. He was 2 for 8 on threes. If you want to be concerned about the three-point shot, you certainly can. Frankly, I was watching the game and I was just like, I barely noticed that Franz was taking threes. I was actually surprised that he took 8 threes when I looked at the box score, because Franz was just getting downhill to the basket. They set him up for some post-ups and he had great footwork and maneuvering around the basket. This is not the opponent. Frankly, this is not the opponent that I am really judging Franz Wagner on. Like I said, this to me felt like a baseline. This is the start of the tournament. Everything is only going to get better from here. And the competition will get tougher too. But everyone was just getting their legs under them. And again, I thought that they played well, didn't play fantastic, but they played well. They were in control of the game. They didn't panic. They didn't waver. They just did their thing. And, Germany, I thought, played really well. And Germany's obviously a major contender in this tournament. So we'll see how they continue to get better, and we'll judge Franz Wagner more as he plays tougher competition. Because look, he shut down Rui Hachimura. Rui still got to 20 points, but he was like 4 for 22 from the field, and Franz was a big part of that. Franz can get to the basket whenever he wants against an opponent like that. I'll be much more interested to see Germany play France. I believe they're in the same group. I'll be much more interested to see Germany play France with the size that they have, where Franz may be forced to shoot some more jumpers and work from the perimeter a little bit more. But Japan just isn't going to provide enough resistance for us to learn very much. We did, however, learn a lot about Team USA. Team USA with very impressive, I believe it ended up being a 21-point victory over Serbia, a game that was fairly close in the first quarter. The U.S. brings their bench in. Nikola Jokic goes out. Kevin Durant goes crazy. He was like 21 points in the first half, just did all his work. And the U.S. zooms past Serbia. To me, this was a game where the U.S. just had to kind of figure it out. If you know me and you've heard me talk about international basketball before, I am a major critic of the way Team USA puts their teams together. I believe that we should have an actual program where players progress and play together. Even from the youth stage, I think that they should take more players who are part of the youth teams, or they should do a better job scouting the youth teams and make sure that players graduate from the youth teams, from the youth teams to the national team, to the senior national team, or that you just kind of have the same core players who play every tournament. Maybe you have an absence here or there, but it's essentially the same players. I am not a fan of slapdashing this thing together the way that Team USA has. And look, they still get away with it. They're still super talented, but you're going to run into a team that makes their shots, that is super talented, like Serbia is. Serbia didn't make shots. Serbia did not play a good game. Nikola Jokic was okay, not great. But early on, they were getting burned on backdoors. They were stagnant on offense. You could just tell like Serbia had a purpose and an understanding of how to play together, and that kept the game close, and the U.S. didn't. And ultimately, the U.S. got hot. Durant went crazy. That second unit had a lot more flow and movement to them, and you could kind of see like, okay, these are the lineups that are going to work, and this is how the U.S. is going to have to play. Kevin Durant's not going to make 7 of 8 shots or 8 of 9 shots, whatever he made, every game. The U.S. made a ridiculous number of threes in this game to keep them in it. They were really struggling to get downhill and get to the paint until the third quarter when the dam kind of broke. Playing with Joel Embiid is a disaster. He is just frankly too slow. Nikola Jokic was running circles around him. It was bad. The U.S. found their groove together. They found the pet plays. They found the transition. They found the shots to make it work. And Serbia is a really good team. This U.S. team is probably still going to win the gold medal. Like they, as much as I'm critical of the process, they are still so talented. LeBron James, when he's locked in, is still just unbelievably good. And he was locked in this game. He was carrying U.S. for a long stretch in the early part of the game, and then kind of put the hammer down in the third and fourth quarter. It just feels like it takes a while for them to get on the same page, and staying on the same page for longer stretches is much more difficult. Serbia did not play a good game. They missed a lot of threes. They turned the ball over a lot. They did not play a good game. And the U.S. was probably lucky to get Serbia so early. We'll probably see Serbia again in the knockout round because Serbia is a really good team. I'm a big believer in the continuity thing with these national teams. Like you could tell Serbia was running offense and understood placement and how to play off of each other in a way that Team USA needed a quarter and a half to figure out. And then they lose it, and then they have to figure it out again. Steve Kerr is not helping Team USA. Again, Embiid is a disaster. He's been terrible in all the exhibition games. He was he was terrible in this game. Like he wasn't good. We know he's a better player, but this team is not built to play around Joel Embiid. Plain truth. I'd rather bring him off the bench with the shooters that they have off the bench than start him. Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo are just so much more effective in FIBA play in this play. I know I'm probably not saying anything you're not hearing anywhere else, but it's bad. But this is why continuity matters. Like, why are the Magic continually investing in continuity? Why is this a thing for them? It's a thing for them because everyone is able to get on the same page quicker. The Magic essentially are trying to trying to kind of shortcut their maybe offensive weaknesses and shortcut their flaws by saying, okay, everyone on the team knows the flaws on this team and knows how to work around it, knows how to play around it, knows how to cover it up and cover for each other. That's not something that has to be learned. It's instinct at this point. That's why continuity matters. That's why being on the same page and playing together matters so much. Orlando is probably going to get out to another hot start this season. They may hit another doldrum in January, February when everyone else begins to catch up to them. But Orlando should be a team that plays really well from the start of the season, because they've all played together before. And obviously they're integrating Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and a new starter, but he very much feels like a plug-and-play player. You're always starting from scratch, but it's easier to build when you know how the pieces fit together. And I think that's the big takeaway for me from these early Team USA games is they're still figuring out how to fit together. You look at a team like Germany. Germany knows how to play together. Like Franz knows his role and what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to play. Dennis Schroeder knows when he comes downhill where players are going to be and like Bo Wagner rolling down the paint knows how to time it all to be open for his teammates, knows how to screen to get his teammates open. They all know what they're doing because they played together for the last 3 summers. We've watched them play together for the last 3 summers. This is what Team USA is missing. This is what Germany has. This is what the Magic have. This is what Serbia has. This is what a lot of these other international teams have. And to me, yes, Team USA is so talented. They're able to make up for it. But I think this tournament's going to be trickier for them until they all get on the same page because they lack the continuity. Obviously, they played South Sudan before. We'll see them play South Sudan again on Wednesday. But it's still going to be a challenge because you have to learn to play together. This isn't 2K. You can't just slap players together and expect them to work together and understand the nuances of what they're trying to do. That's just not how it works. But Team USA is going to get away with it because they're really talented and Kevin Durant's really good and LeBron James is really good. And, once Drew Holiday got his feet under him, Drew Holiday and Derek White were really good players for this team. Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo were flying around, playing great defense, and their size is so valuable to this team. The U.S. is going to be fine, but I think they have a learning curve that they have to get past that all these other teams don't have to get past. Their talent is something everyone else has to figure out how to play around. But imagine a talented team like the U.S. with continuity. We wouldn't be questioning or doubting how this tournament's going to go. Maybe we're not, but that's neither here nor there. We'll continue to do updates on the Olympics as games happen. Germany, I believe, plays their next game on Tuesday, I want to say. Double checking. Yep, Tuesday against Brazil for Germany. That is a 3 p.m. Eastern time tip-off, so you have that to look forward to. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Filming Sound podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_. You can at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Got lost in my script there. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Now that you're done listening to us, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Ross and Mike. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.